Chapter 2. An unsettling change of plans. Freya slumped down onto the lounge, expecting a lecture. Instead, Clementine placed a small package on her knee. "Oh," Freya cried, and threw her arms around her mother's waist. "I love boxes tied up with string." "I hope," said Clementine, "that you will love what's inside." Freya grabbed the end of the string between finger and thumb and pulled the bow out. The lid popped up, and inside, in a nest of green tissue paper, lay a tiny grey hare crafted from felt. She nestled it in the palm of her hand, where she admired its stubby fuzz ears, black bead eyes, and fine short whiskers. "It's a leveret," said Freya. "Just like the babies we watched throughout the summer." Clementine smiled. "A delicious summer," she said. "Those babies grew so quickly, became brave and independent long before we were expecting it, long before their mother was expecting it." Her voice caught. "But they were strong and healthy when they left the nest. They were well and truly ready to take on the world. Excited even, because new beginnings are a wonderful thing, an adventure." Freya stroked the hair with one finger and waited. Something big was about to happen. She could hear it in Clementine's voice, feel it in the air like static electricity. She placed the hair carefully back into its nest of tissue paper and retied the string. Cupping the box in her hands, she sat as still as a granite rock, staring straight ahead at a small rip in the wallpaper. She waited and waited. "I'm afraid we can no longer go to Siberia in the spring," said Clementine. "Oh," sighed Freya, fiddling with the string bow. "That's disappointing." "Yes," agreed Clementine. "We'll still go somewhere with bears, won't we?" asked Freya. "I really want to see bears again. Even a little bear will do." Clementine wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulder and drew her close. "Unfortunately, we won't be embarking on any new field trips this year." Freya's eyes grew wide. She clutched Clementine's arm with both hands. "We're not staying here, are we? Not in stinky old London?" "No, my love. I'm going to Switzerland." "Switzerland?" Freya was horrified. "I know there are mountains and glaciers and snow, but it's nowhere near the Arctic Circle." She shook her head, then blew a corkscrew curl out of her face with a disgusted blast of air. "Switzerland," she scoffed. "If I said that, Clementine, you'd say, 'Why, Freya, have you lost your inner atlas?'" Clementine laughed at Freya's perfect mimicry, but the mirth didn't quite reach her eyes. There was no wrinkling of crow's feet, no sparkling of iris, no real joy. Clementine shifted uneasily beneath Freya's gaze. "I have not lost my inner atlas," she explained. "I am going to Switzerland alone, and you, my dear child, will be going on a special journey to Hampshire." "Special?" Freya released her mother's arms. "Not with Mrs. Thompson? Oh, Clementine, how could you? After all we've been through together, I am doomed to be bossed about by a walrus with fluffy blue slippers and a frown like a—" "I'm sick," her mother whispered. The little gift box tumbled to the floor. Freya stared at the spot where it landed, but she did not move to pick it up. "I am sick," repeated Clementine. The three little words hung in the air like an Arctic chill. "Chickenpox?" asked Freya, knowing the answer already. One's face and hands did not grow slowly thinner and paler from a bout of chicken pox. Clementine shook her head. A cold? An ingrown toenail? Her mother's head shook again, a little slower this time. I'll stay with you, said Freya. I'll look after you. I can make soup and cocoa, and I'm very good with money. I'll be brave. I'll go to the shops all on my own and buy food and medicine and warm pyjamas. You can even have my hot water bottle with a fluffy polar bear cover. You can't stay with me, said Clementine. I'm going to a special clinic in the Swiss Alps, and they don't allow children. But thank you. It makes me very proud that you'll be willing to do all that for me. I'll do anything for you, Mummy darling heart, whispered Freya, using the endearment that she saved for special occasions. Then do this, said Clementine. Go to Hampshire. Don't be sad, but have a wonderful adventure so you can write exciting, happy letters that will cheer me up. And then, when I'm better and can collect you, you can be my guide around every hill, brook and forest, tell me all about the wildlife and show me how bold and clever you have grown in my absence. Bother, trapped by her own words. The bottom of their world had just fallen out and splattered all over her feet, and she longed to cry, to throw herself into Clementine's arms, sobbing. But a promise is a promise, and Freya had just declared that she would do anything for her mummy darling heart. She inhaled deeply, the breath wobbling as it went down into her lungs. She bit her bottom lip and rubbed the heels of her hands against her eyes. Then, stalling for time, she slipped to the floor and retrieved the little gift box. The leverets, cried Clementine. I almost forgot. That's why I gave you the felt hair, to remind you of the mother hare allowing her babies to venture into the big wide world, all alone, even though it seemed too early, even though she was a little nervous. I was there for them, said Freya. My lap was a nest when they were weary. A safe haven, agreed Clementine, like Hampshire will be for you. But why Hampshire? Asked Freya. There aren't even any bears. Hampshire has something better than bears. Clementine gave a knowing smile. Hampshire has Tobias Appleby. Chapter 3. Who is Tobias Appleby? Who is Tobias Appleby? Asked Freya. It was, of course, the most important thing to know at this moment. Tobias Appleby is... She scratched her head as though struggling to find the right words. Tobias is a very important person, a dear friend. Freya frowned. But I've never heard of him before. He's very trustworthy, said Clementine. Trustworthy? Echoed Freya. It was a rather cold description. School principals were trustworthy, but she didn't want to spend a holiday with one. He's 32 years old and very tall. Clementine, it seemed, was determined to tell only the things that did not matter. Freya pictured a tall school principal blowing out 32 white candles on a very plain-looking cake. The cake was not iced. It didn't even have cinnamon sugar on top. Clementine's words gave her nothing to hang her thoughts on and only cold places to store her feelings. Please tell me more, Freya begged. Oh, my darling, Clementine ruffled her daughter's curls. You know that we should always decide for ourselves. Watch, listen, learn. Like we do with the animals we study. I don't want you to look at Tobias Appleby through my eyes when you first meet him. I want you to use your own eyes, your own heart. My hope is that you will make him your friend for the reasons you choose. Why Tobias? Why not someone else? But as soon as Freya said it, she knew why. There was no one else. It had always been just Freya and Clementine, in London or abroad, in a crowded room or out in the vast icy expanse of the Arctic. And until now, that had been enough. Better than enough. It had been perfect. But sometimes it turned out you needed more. "He's our only choice, isn't he?" whispered Freya. Clementine blinked. She looked extremely pale and tired. "The only choice," she agreed. "But the same choice I would make if I had 1,000,000 exceptional people to choose from. 1,000,000,000 even." "But why?" Freya nagged. "Because he's special." Clementine jumped to her feet. She climbed up onto her desk and retrieved something that had been hidden at the top of the bookcase, stashed behind journals and cobwebs. She returned to the lounge bearing what looked like a miniature treasure chest, no bigger than a box of tea leaves. Using her sleeve to wipe off the dust, she handed the chest to Freya. "Take this." Up close, the treasure chest was rather disappointing. The metal bracings were battered and rusty, the timber was dull and scratched, and one end was charred black as though it had been toasted over an open fire. Perhaps it was a ruse to make one think that nothing of value could be hidden inside when, truly, the contents were spectacular: jewels, rare coins, a treasure map. Freya's picture of Tobias Appleby quickly changed from school principal into swashbuckling seafaring pirate. A green and red parrot sat on his shoulder, nibbling at his gold earring. His wooden leg made a delightful knocking sound as he strode across the deck of his ship towards the cannon. It was a pleasing transformation, and Freya's spirits lifted. She tried to open the lid, but it was locked. "Where's the key?" Clementine shrugged. "Ask Tobias. I got the treasure chest. He got the key." "So I can open it when I get to Tobias's house?" "Oh, I don't think so." Clementine seemed shocked at the idea. "I'm simply making you joint guardian of Tobias's and my secret in my stead. Just until I'm well again." "What secrets?" cried Freya. "Clementine, that doesn't make sense." "I know, my love." Clementine patted her daughter's hand. "But one day it will." "One day? Which day?" pleaded Freya. "The day that Tobias decides is right." "That's just silly." Freya slapped the arm of the lounge so hard that her hand hurt. "Why should Tobias Appleby decide?" She took a deep breath and shouted, "Who exactly is Tobias Appleby?" Gently, calmly, Clementine took the treasure chest from Freya's lap. "I'm going upstairs now to pack. This will go into your suitcase." "But who is Tobias Appleby?" Clementine looked back as she headed up the stairs, her face strange and dreamy as she said in hushed, low tones, "Tobias is..." Freya could not be sure, but as her mother disappeared from sight, it sounded as though she whispered one last word: "Family."